Thank you very much. First, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respect to elders, both past, present, and emerging. And thank you very much for coming here today. I would like to welcome Dr. Subai Sai. Came all the way from Melbourne to here to educate our young generation of engineers about how to start their careers and move forward with their careers in Australian industry. And I also welcome there are a few past chairs who are joining here, past committee members and our present committee members and all the participants welcome here. And also I would like to welcome, I think we got over 150 plus online participants, probably 152 locations. It might be there might be groups joining from same location, so number must be much higher than that, and I would like to welcome all those. Then I'd like to give you some housekeeping information. The evacuation paths, if you go straight down and turn left, there's exit door, and you have one stair down, right hand side going down, one evacuation path, and you go straight through the door, and there's a corridor, and end of the corridor there's another evacuation path, evacuation stairs down. So everyone welcome to the lecture. And yeah, finally I would like to thank you, the sponsors. And without sponsors, we can't have this type of events, and there's a cost involved. And having this this type of events again and again, it's not a possible scenario for an institute like us without sponsors. So today we have been sponsored by DVW Enterprise, and who are a well-known and reputed dealer of used pre-owned cars in Australia, Sydney region. Thank you very much, Dakshita and the team, for sponsoring us. We highly appreciate your generosity in this kind of knowledge sharing for new engineers. And hopefully this is for pathway for newly migrant engineers. Of course, you will be enhancing your career, or you'll be finding new job opportunities with the information and knowledge you are gaining out of this. Of course, once you get there, probably one of the main target is get a better car. So don't forget DW and Dakshita at that time. So he will definitely come and help you. And if you do that, of course, Dakshita will come back and sponsor many more events like this. So just keep that name in your mind. And next, I would like to invite Dr. Damit Mohatti to introduce our guest lecturer today and continue with the proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhamika. And welcome everyone to our first guest lecture for this year, 2024 guest lecture series, IESL New South Wales chapter. Especially, it's great to see like so many people joining from Sri Lanka as well. I think one of the reason that we selected this title for the first lecture was targeting the Sri Lankan audience as well. We know that there's a great interest on what we are planning to discuss today. And it's my privilege and honor to introduce Dr. Subai, one of my long-term friends. Like we were together doing PhD at the same time at University of Melbourne. Go back to around, I think, 15 years, I guess, roughly. So at that time, we discussed about many things. Okay, he has thorough understanding about world politics, okay, structural engineering. He's a good entertainer in that context. Okay, now, so his career he started as an academic, but has gone into many other different directions. So one of the most suitable people to talk to us in this forum because he has that experience from academia as well as the industry as well. So he started his journey at University of Melbourne. After doing PhD, he joined as a senior tutor, worked there for many years before he went into Malaysia, UK. And I met him Abu Dhabi once, like when he was in Abu Dhabi as a senior lecturer. So has good experience overseas as well, not only in Australia, but overseas experience. Plus, in recent time, he got some real valuable experience. When I talked to him, he highlighted this as his one of the milestone in his career, especially working in leading projects, tier 1 companies in Australia, and gain that industry experience will add him a great value addition to his very long academic career. So I think with that, you can see he's one of the best to talk to us about the current topic, pathways for newly migrant engineers. He migrated to Australia from, similar to us, from Bangladesh originally. And he has clearly shown that even migrants can reach to the higher level positions or the leadership positions in institute here in Australia if you have the skill and the necessary other qualifications set. I think, again, thanks Zubair for accepting my invitation or the group invitation, sorry, to come all the way from Melbourne and deliver this valuable lecture to us. Thank you, and I won't take more time on this, and over to you, Zubair, for your lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Damit, and thank you, the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, New South Wales branch, for inviting me for this session. And it was a privilege to talk to in front of so many qualified people and people listening from online from different parts. And it is always pleasure to talk about the journey and the things related to migrants, especially in Australia, because it is always good to see the people, they know them. Yes. So often it is really so it is always a privilege to talk as a migrant background, as Dr. Damit has mentioned, and also to see different sides of the fence and also to realize the challenges migrant engineers they often face. And it was also my opportunity to take up this role. This is a newly created role within Engineers Australia to talk to develop some new pathways for the migrants and local engineers with different academic background or different journey in their life and also in their career. So it is I would like to welcome you all, people here and also online, to share some of our experiences and some of our observations. And if it helps in any way to your understanding or to your journey, it would be a big pleasure. It would be much of a satisfaction for me as well. So at the beginning, I just want to acknowledge the country we work and we live upon. And today we are presenting from the home of Gadigal people of Euro Nation. I'm from Melbourne, so actually this is the first time I'm presenting in Sydney. So forgive me about my lack of knowledge of the local people here. So what I'll do is, I know in our audience we have some fresh graduates who has migrated to Australia, I assume so. And then we have also people, they are actually trying to migrate. So in our discussion or in our talk, what I'll do is I'll cover some aspects that is very much relevant to people who are already in Australia. And then I'll be talking about some of the aspects that is related to people who wants to come through this migration skill assessment route through different types of visas.
And I will also talk about a little bit of different aspects or different functional groups in Engineers Australia, because Engineers Australia, I would say, is a growing institute, and we have different groups. They are doing different things, and as members, we often need to deal with not all the groups, some of the groups. So it is always better to know which group is doing what, and then we can have an idea about the institute as a whole. So if you look at the functional structure of Engineers Australia, you will see that we have different groups, and then different groups, they are actually working in different areas. And the important thing is, most probably you will not as a member or will not as a member encounter or dealing with many of the groups. Few of the groups, they are actually important for us as members. One of the group is actually the assessment team. We call them actually this assessments and operations, or operations and assessments. This team is mainly, they deal with this migration skill assessment, stage 1 assessment. I'll be using some terms, but eventually I'll try to explain those terms as we go along. So this team, they actually do all sorts of assessments, and they actually deal with the assessment things and other things. So often people coming through this immigration or migration skills assessment, somebody is trying to get a credential as chartered engineer or so on. They will actually have to have some communication with this team. Then we have another team. They are actually talking about the growths and education and so on. One of their main arm in that group is in EEA, or this is Engineering Education Academy. That one is a part of Engineers Australia. That one actually promote different types of short course and courses to career develop or professional develop of engineers. And I sit under the Office of Chief Engineer. We are actually known as the professional standard teams. We actually don't really do as first-hand assessment, but what we do is we actually create the framework or the standards that is being used as the competency framework for the engineers. We also talk about the quality or ensure the quality control and quality assurance for the engineering professions. So our team is mainly the, I would say, the gatekeeper of the quality and the standards for the engineering professions. I think these are the three groups usually will be actually as engineers or as members will be dealing with mostly. Now, if you look at the role of Engineers Australia, often we don't really feel that as a professional body what they can do. Or as a member, the experience often is that we sometimes come for assessment or sometimes we pay for the membership, that's it. But in reality, actually, they represent the profession. They actually maintain the standards through different mechanisms. They do the accreditation for the engineering programs. They maintain the international treaty, including the treaty through International Engineering Alliance. They also do the competency assessment, migration skill assessment. They maintain the professional frameworks. They also do the credential development and assessment. They also do different or offer different types of professional developments for the engineers to develop their career. And also one of the important things they do is actually they do the advocacy for the profession to the government and other organizations, even in the international level. So as I mentioned that I sit under the Office of Chief Engineer. We are the professional standards team. Few of the things we do is actually we accredited all engineering programs in Australia, and we have some accredited programs, like programs accredited overseas as well. And personally, I look after this articulation and alternate pathways for members. We also have credential development, international engagement, and registration. They also sit under the Office of Chief Engineers. So just before we go deep into any details, just I wanted to share some highlights or some statistics. I find them interesting, and I find them that actually can give us some insight about the profession and the engineers in Australia. If you look at these statistics, these are actually based on this 2021 census data. And if you look at this information on the top, like nearly 62% people working as professional engineer in engineering workforce, they are born in overseas. And if you look at this one, I just highlight because we are here for Sri Lanka Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka. That's why I just highlighted the number. But this number may not be the exact number because sometimes many of us, we don't really fill up the census correctly. Am I right? Sometimes we don't tick all the boxes. So sometimes it doesn't really reflect the true number of the engineers or the people in that country, but it gives us a little bit of insight about that particular type of data we want to see. So we can see that there are many qualified engineers. They are in the engineering workforce from Sri Lanka working here. And if you look at the year of arrival, you will see that most of them, they actually migrated or they came into the workforce between 2020 and 2026. That's the period we got many of the qualified engineers or people from overseas coming into engineering workforce. And if you look at the time period, the different groups they came with, we can see that there is a reduction. I think that could also be due to the COVID restrictions and so on. So there was a reduction in a little bit because initially it was growing, sudden drop in the numbers. So that can be contributed, or that can be actually said that due to this COVID, there were some impact on that one. And if you look at the different areas, you will see that plenty of people, they are working in construction, they are all working in public sectors, and they're all also working in all other areas. And I think this is many of our main attraction or interesting part. I think the salary. So if you look at these numbers, it actually doesn't represent the whole picture, because you can see some the first upper part is the amount per week, and then in the bracket sometimes I just get it from a data platform, so it's not fully visible some places, but we can get an idea. Say, for example, if you look at the most of the people, they are actually within the bracket of 104,000 to maybe $155,000 per year. Let's say I work in industry. From my small experience, I can say that's a fair amount of representation of about the salary range usually you get in the low or mid range, or a good portion of the engineers earning here. But if you see that, you can see that there is a substantial amount of people, they also earn very high in the industry. And what I have seen last few years, due to the demand and other things, the salary has gone significantly high compared to the numbers you can see on this one. And if you look at the sectors, you can also see the sectors, they have different breakdowns. So sometimes these averages, they don't represent actually how much you will be earning. It depends on your situation. Even in a sector, you can earn very high. And in other sectors, maybe not, they are not earning that high as such. So if you look at the qualification, you will see most of the people, they have a bachelor degree qualification. Sometimes there is a I would say common discussion for the migrants engineers that we need to do a master's to go into workforce. It is a tricky situation. Sometimes it really helps, sometimes it doesn't help. That's what I know of. And sometimes people, they go for doctoral programs and they complete and they go into industry as well. And nowadays it is not very uncommon. I have seen few of my colleagues in the industry, they had a doctoral degree. So it is also nowadays getting a little bit of more than what we had maybe 15, 20 years back. And if you look at the industry they are working on all different types of industries. And you will see some of the industries, they have a very good domination of the overseas born engineers. There could be many factors. We are not really need to discuss those factors, but you can see that in some sectors, we have plenty of overseas qualified or overseas born people working. So if you look at this overall figure, it is not really discouraging. We can see that we have penetration of the migrant engineers or migrant professionals. They have penetration in all different sectors. Now, these few points I wrote without even looking at anything. As a from a personal experience, I just tried to think what are the main issues as a migrant engineer we face. So one of the first thing it came to my mind is lack of exposure to local workplace environment. So often we don't really know or get exposure what type of environment and culture. Everywhere the culture is different. Even working in Australia, when you move from one side of this fence to other side, if you move from academia to industry or industry to academia, there is a significant culture change. Often when people come from overseas background, they find it challenging. Sometimes they don't have the exposure, so they don't get the chance to learn. Finding a suitable job, it is, to be honest, is really a challenge for the migrant engineers. Also, when we are coming from overseas, maybe the education background system and the other things we adapted through or we went through the process, that is different in Australia. So when we start working here, it is a very steep learning curve for us. So we need to actually pick things very quickly compared to our colleagues who actually got educated and trained here. And we also find that migrant engineers, they often don't have the required professional growth compared to some of their local colleagues. And we all know that we do have problems in professional connections. Maybe we don't have that number of colleagues or connections we would have otherwise have if we were born and trained here. So sometimes also it is challenging for migrant engineers to establish themselves within the team, because always there are some other factors that can actually hold them back, and that could be challenging. So in 2021, Engineers Australia, they did a little bit of research on these factors. And these are the 7 key factors they actually discovered the main barrier for employment of overseas trained engineers. So the one I wrote without thinking is the one actually that came as the top issue in the factors. And then another one is actually the perceived cultural differences. Sometimes often people especially in industry may think things are changing, but may think that you or the migrant engineer might not have the soft skills needed for selling their services and so on. There are issues with getting visa and sponsorship. Then another challenge is I think getting a referee who can endorse or who can certify that you are actually very highly skilled and so on. Sometimes there are issues with like employers. They may have some sorts of assumption that the employee may actually go somewhere else once we take them. If they get a better opportunity, they will move to somewhere else. So there are also issues with the people applying. They sometimes also find that maybe they are not really be equally treated, or maybe there are some perception that may create some uncertainty among the applicants. And the last point, this is I think people who are working in industry for some time, they know that often senior roles are actually filled through the connections and networks. So unless we can develop some networks here, sometimes getting into leadership roles, it is challenging. I can tell you from my own experience, it is challenging. So there are few initiatives Engineers Australia they take to they have plans for future they are currently taking, and in the past they did it. So I'll just highlight few of them, or maybe one item particularly that can be applicable or that can be beneficiary for some of you as a great fresh migrants. So the first one is this Global Engineering Talent Program. This one is, I will be talking later more about this one, so I'll just skip for now. So another thing Engineers Australia often do is we try to advocate and we try to provide feedback to government initiatives and visa programs, so that actually the visa programs that is developed for the skilled migrations and so on is actually really helping the industry and also the community. So another thing Engineers Australia did is develop this Engineering Education Academy. It offers different types of short courses and also try to offer some type of short training, micro credentials, and this is expanding. So it would actually have new things in future to help the engineers for their professional development and also to try to make them work fit. So Engineers Australia is in discussion with other options and advocacies like trying to get surplus engineers from other countries. We know there are surplus engineers in countries like, say, for example, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, those areas. So they are actually thinking of some whether there could be some mechanism that can help to bring some surplus engineers with some training and so on. And also Engineers Australia support and promote some of the government initiatives. One of the initiatives, I didn't write the whole name, this EPIC. This one is an initiative by MRPV, that means Main Road Projects Victoria. This is mainly for the asylum seeker migrants, but this one was pretty successful, where they actually placed people with skills and other things in the right real workplace, and then supported them for 18 months, if I'm not mistaken, to train them and give them exposure to the local things. And I worked with a couple of them during my industry work, and I have seen that they have benefited from this program immensely. Now, as I mentioned, this Global Engineering Talent Program, this one is a new program. It is currently being tried. It will be going on trial in Western Australia and Northern Territory. This package is this program is actually for 18 months program. Out of this 18 months, 6 months they will be trained by Engineers Australia, and the 6 weeks, 6 weeks they will be trained by Engineers Australia, and then the 12 weeks they will be actually placed in the real workplace under the employer. And when they will be under the employer, they will actually get the standard salary that an engineer of that caliber is getting. So what Engineers Australia will do is, in this 6 months, they will give them some training and some mentoring, some specific guidelines to train them or prepare them for workplace. And during the 12-month period in placement with the employer, they will learn the real work in their industry. And the expectation is, after the end of this program, if that candidate who is in this program can demonstrate sufficiently that person's skill, then that person is expected to be employed by that employer. So this is a partnership between the employers and Engineers Australia to support new migrants and people coming on this one. So if you want to be eligible for this one, then you need to live in Australia. You should have at least 3 to 5 years experience in your area. So this experience can be overseas experience as well, as far as I understand. I think the team, I will give you the email address. You can check with them to be sure. But you also have to do a migration skill assessment or stage 1 assessment. People coming as a migrant, they definitely has done this MSA or the migration skill assessment. Without that, you are not here. So that means you have already done that one. And this one also, this is obvious that you are available for this 18 weeks of period, and you have actually right to work in Australia, and you are not actually working anywhere else. So these are the eligibility criteria. And the fee for this program will be paid by the employers. So the engineers will be not paying anything from their pocket during that period. And if you want to know more about this program, you can actually send an email to this email address. And this program is starting in NT and Western Australia, but the plan is that once we get sufficient sponsors in other states, we will actually roll out this program in other states as well. And I think it's one of our flagship program. If it's successful and if we see that there is a real benefit for employer and the members, then this program is expected to expand. So so far, whatever I told, that is more focused on the people who are already here or actually looking for job here in Australia. Now, in next few slides, I'll be talking a little bit about people who wants to come to Australia. I suspect that we have few participants, they may be within that category. So one thing I'll be just saying is that whenever you are trying to migrate through the skill programs or skill visas, and if you are applying for this engineering categories, then you need to actually have your skills assessed by Engineers Australia. Engineers Australia is actually a government nominated organization to do this type of assessments. We call it MSA. So when you are applying for this MSA, there are enough information, I would say enough information on the website, but what I thought of doing is give you some insights how to address those ones. So first thing is what you do is you look at your qualifications. So the way we define qualifications here, maybe in Engineers Australia, we have 3 occupational categories. So one, we call it professional engineers. Second one, we call it engineering technologists. Third one, we call it engineering associates. So if you want to be a professional engineer, in that case, you will have to have a Washington Accord degree or equivalent degree. And if you want to be an engineering technologist, then you need to have a Sydney Accord or 3 year, generally 3 years engineering degree. And if you are looking for engineering associates, then you need to have an advanced diploma or 2-year equivalent Dublin Accord degree. So you need to look at your qualifications and you need to see which category you fit into better before you apply. And then after that, you need to see what assessments is applicable for you. So you choose your right assessment path. And when you are applying, preparing your application, in that case, you need to be a little bit of careful about that one, because often I don't do the assessment. Sometimes after assessment and appeals, it comes to us for articulation and so on. So I have seen sometimes the people may have the qualification and the skills, but sometimes they don't know how to demonstrate them or present them. So that is very important when we prepare our application. So as I mentioned, you need to see where you fit in. Sometimes you will see that depending on the visa or the priorities and other things, whether your previous under MSA or the migration scheme, your previous experience can sometimes get counted and so on. So people wants, for various reasons, they choose different categories, even though they have a Washington Accord equivalent degree, but they may actually want to come as an engineering technologist. Maybe sometimes getting visa in this category is easier depending on the demand list and so on. So it is your decision that which is good for you or meets the skill set for you and you want to choose from. And then you, based on that one, you prepare your your migration skill assessment application. This migration MSA and stage 1, they are actually similar. So when you are doing this migration application, in that case, they will be talking about this stage 1. What this stage 1, I'll be talking a little bit more in next couple of slides. This stage 1, understanding this stage 1 competency is often the key to get your outcome correct, what you want. And when you actually understand these competencies correctly, in that case, I think when you are writing your career episodes, when you apply this MSA route or migration skill assessment, you need to submit some career episodes to demonstrate those competencies. So what are the competencies? We have 3, but mainly we have 2 types of competencies. We call it stage 1 competency and stage 2 competency. Stage 1 competency, we call it as an entry to practice competency. So whether you are professional engineer, engineering technologist, engineering associates, if you want to join the workforce, you need to demonstrate the stage 1 competency. The stage 1 competency for an engineering associate is different from a professional engineer. But for both of them, or all 3 categories, you need to demonstrate the competencies to your level. So why we need this one? If you want to become a member of Institute, Engineers Australia, if you want to get registration and other things, registration, charter, whatever you want to do, the first stage is you need to demonstrate your stage 1 competencies. And I'll be talking a little bit more on this one in the next slide. And the stage 2 competencies is more related to your independent practice. That means you want to be chartered. You want to be on national register. In that case, you need to have this stage 2 independent competencies. Sometimes people, they can easily demonstrate stage 2 competencies, but showing stage 1 competency can often be a little bit challenging. Why? Because stage 1 competencies are related your direct education and background. So if you don't have that background and education, in that case, sometimes you will see that meeting the stage 1 competency can be challenging. And if you want to be chartered, this is important. If you want to be chartered, if you want to be on National Engineering Register, then definitely you first thing you will have to do is you will have to demonstrate your stage 1 competency. If you are not competent in stage 1, you cannot actually get the independent practice credentials for that category. So if your stage 1 competencies are equivalent to engineering technologies, then you can be chartered, but your chartered would be in the category of engineering technologies. You cannot be CP Inch. You can be CP C Inch T. That means it is for the technologies category. So this is something we need. And as I was mentioning, that stage 1 competencies are mostly related to your knowledge. So if you have a Washington Accord accredited degree, and Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka, they are a signatory of Washington Accord. So if you have a 4 years accredited degree, then it would be automatically recognized here. So you don't really have that problem. But if your degree is not accredited, in that case, you need to show that your knowledge, your skill, engineering application, and the professional attributes, they actually meet the graduate attributes of a Washington Accord degree. So stage 2 is more of related to your professional practice. So in that case, stage 2, you need to show that you can work ethically, you can work independently, you can work in a team, you can lead things, you can coordinate, manage things. So those skills, even if you are an engineering technologist, you can actually demonstrate those skills. If you are engineering associates, people, I deal with people, they have a 30, 40 years of industry experience, but they don't have the background education. So they cannot actually show the stage 1 competencies, but they can easily demonstrate stage 2 competencies. So stage 2 competencies is more related to your professional practice and so on. Now, if you related to thinking about your preparation of your application, when you will be writing your career episodes, you need to make sure that when you are writing them, you try to show that you demonstrate these things. If you go to Engineers Australia website, they have links for competencies, stage 1 competencies. Just download that page, you will see that there are competency indicators. So how you can demonstrate. So say, for example, competency 1.2 that talks about the mathematical understanding and so on. Even in that indicator, you will see that when you are talking about maths, understanding of maths, they are not only talking about the basic maths. They are talking about, say, for example, advanced level of maths based on your discipline. So they are maybe talking about partial differentiation equation, numerical analysis, or some advanced maths, advanced vector, advanced statistics. So if you do any project where you applied those information in your career episode, when you're writing your career episode, you just specifically say that I did these numbers. I use this maths, I use these things to derive or get my conclusion. So that is a good way of writing your career episode, where you can actually show the assessor that this is the competency you are looking for. I have that competency and I demonstrated those competencies through these activities. So it is always important to give exactly what you have done and how you demonstrated those competencies. That is actually very important when you prepare your migration skill assessment application. Now, these are the things I think we all know. Getting employment is really really difficult part. And from the statistics, if I'm not mistaken, on top of my head, there is almost 50% of the migrant engineers, they end up with working in the non-engineering roles. So there could be many factors. Some people, they like entrepreneurship, they want to do business. There are some other people, they get other good jobs. So there could be many positive, negative factors. So, but still it's a good chunk of people, they don't continue in the area they were trained at. So one of the things for the Australian people, you can, I think you are familiar with this Workforce Australia website. You can actually see some pathways in employment pathways and other things through this website. And I think I believe all of us here, at least we know about Seek and other websites where you can actually look for jobs. And we are actually discussing when you look for job, one thing we need to remember is that in every country I lived and worked 5 different countries, and I think I'm maybe qualified to say that different countries had got very different set of requirements. When you apply for a teaching job in UK, that is vastly different from when you apply for a teaching job in Australia. When you apply for an industry job in UK, it is significantly different from applying for similar roles in Australia. Often you will see that they talk about this selection criteria and so on, and talk about cover letter selection criteria. When you are applying for a job, you need to make sure that you understand what exactly they are looking for. Sometimes what happens is we look, say for example, personally I'm trained as a structural engineer. I taught civil engineering and mostly structural engineering for a long time, 10 years plus. But I can also teach geotechnical engineering. But do you think any university in Australia or overseas, they will hire me to teach geotechnical engineering? No. Why? Because when a recruiter or employer is recruiting somebody, they have a specific requirements in their mind. So when we prepare our cover letter or what do we call it? The way we prepare the cover letter and the selection criteria, we need to try to address exactly what they are looking for. Let me tell you should not be saying these things, my own experience. When I applied for this role in Australia, this is a new role, first time this is the first time but when I read this criteria or selection criteria, I knew I meet all of them. So this is what, and because something they are looking for, say, for example, recognition of prior learning experience. Somebody has done those things. So, but I'm not going into detail. What I'm saying simply is that when you read the criteria, try to put yourself in their shoes, what they are are looking for. Are they looking for civil engineer in general? Most probably not, because they will be putting you in a position. Another important thing I learned when working in the industry, this is something different from the countries we come from. The day they will expect you to produce from, not from the next day, 1 week before you joining, am I right? So their expectation is the moment you land on the job, you come with all the skill sets and you start producing, am I right? In very few places, you will find there is a window of opportunity for you to learn. So all you have to do is you will have to prepare yourself to learn on the job, but at the same time, you need to have your confidence that I can actually do the job. Often we know we can do the job, but sometimes we present the way we present, we cannot really present it the way the people in the other side, they are actually asking for. So this is also important to understand the selection criteria, understand what the other people or the advertiser is looking for, and we need to pitch correctly to them so that they actually can see the value in me. Often we need to establish that we bring value to their organization or their team. Otherwise, there is no real benefit for them to recruit you. Sometimes in many jobs, there are many people. So why they will recruit you over others? So you need to, sometimes we say I'm a team player. There are few common things we say often. Am I a team player? I'm very flexible on other things. The employers are also tired of listening these things. Am I right? So we need to say something new. We need to be authentic when we say some things so that we can actually convince them that I am actually genuine and what I'm saying, I mean it. We also need to keep on developing our skills. It is also important because if we are stagnant, the way world is changing is very fast. And every time you change your handset, mobile handset, you realize that things have changed significantly from the last one. So we need to actually keep up with the things happening around us. There are plenty of online courses you can find in different places. Engineers Australia, they have many free professional development sessions and trainings that is free for the members. Then there are some in Australia, they organize some networking events. After COVID, we started to getting people on in a venue and more in a physical form. So it is always better to have some networking. Sometimes networking, it actually helps us to get even sometimes some information that they are actually looking for somebody like this. This information can help you to land in that job. So also you can check out some of the courses offered or some of the programs offered by Engineering Education Australia. And you can also try to see what are the things that can add value to you. Sometimes as a new migrants, we may have to actually lower our expectations, and we need to understand the reality. Sometimes when we come from our own comfort zone, then when we come here, we still have, I had that one. I don't know whether any of you have this one, that we have I would say over like confidence, and sometimes we think we are good for everything, but sometimes you need to learn in a hard way that there are other things we need to learn to lower our expectations and lower our I would say the way we look ourselves. So I'm not saying that, I'm no way suggesting that you lose your confidence, have your confidence, but you try to be realistic in your expectations and in your maneuvers. And then actually this is something, if you are already here, most probably you know about this registration for professional engineers. It is already I think in Queensland. It is for a long time, 1929. And if you are, when I applied for my chartership, I applied from Abu Dhabi. I was teaching at Abu Dhabi University. So when I applied, I was a member of Engineers Australia. So when I applied, they actually gave my chartered outcome letter for the Queensland one. Why? At that time, Queensland was the only state where this registration was mandatory. So anybody asking from overseas or something, they used to put them, my understanding is put them under that basket to give a legal framework. Now this registration is in place in New South Wales for 6 categories, Victoria, I think 5 categories, and civil was I think in Victoria, it started from 2021, because when I was at 2021 or 2022, when I was working, I had few of the colleagues, they didn't have they were not actually having the qualification for registration, so they couldn't actually sign documents. So we had to find other people to sign those documents and do those reviews. And I think ACT and Western Australia, they will be implementing this one very quick, I think soon, sometimes in 2024. If I'm not mistaken, some announcement was expected from ACT today, and South Australia will actually follow soon. So if you want to practice in Australia as a professional engineer, you need to have this registration. Otherwise, you can only work under somebody's supervision, and you cannot sign documents and papers, and reports going out cannot have your name as the engineer without supervision. Under supervision is fine, but if you are a senior person working for some years, you don't want to be under somebody. And for the employers, it's also not good, because they need to have a second layer of review done by somebody else who has the authority to sign. So I think the registration is important, and it is also a good thing, I would say, because now we deal with many people, they are in the industry for a long time. They have done different type of things. And what they have done is now this registration is in place. So they are actually now struggling to prove that they have the credential or the credibility to do this one. Now, one thing is, I think you already know about, this one is the Migration Recognition Agreement. This one is a Mutual Recognition Agreement. This one is the agreement between different engineering bodies, like say, for example, Engineers Australia has with Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka. Under this agreement, if you are a member in your home or host organization or home organization or home body, then you can be an equivalent member here. Only problem is our only point is that if you are chartered in a body, say for example in the UK or in Sri Lanka, but your primary degree or the main engineering degree is not Washington Accord accredited, then your charteredship cannot be recognized by Engineers Australia. So I get this case very often. People from UK, they have these chartered credentials, but they cannot switch or they cannot use this mutual recognition agreement to have their chartered credential transferred. So as long as you have the Washington Accord degree, and if you get a chartered in your home country, and if we have agreement with your home organization, then you can actually convert it, or you can get recognized here as well. This is mainly for members. If you are already Engineers Australia member, and if you are a member in the category of engineering technologists or engineering associates, and you want to change your category to professional engineer, in that case, you can actually do a process, we call it articulation. This articulation service is free for the members. Through this process, you may have to undergo certain, not may, most likely will have to undergo certain agreed learning plans. And once you complete those agreed learning, then actually you can be transferred from your occupational category to the target or the one you want to be in. Another one is this alternate pathways. Some people among us may not have this accredited degrees and other things. So these people they may work in the industry for a long time. They have experiential learnings and other learnings. If they can demonstrate those experiential learnings and the academic qualifications, whatever they have combined all together, if they can show that actually equivalent to Washington Accord degree, in that case, that person can be actually accepted as a professional engineer through these alternate pathways. So in summary, what we actually discussed, I tried to do today is, I know this is the beginning of many of your search for information and so on, or maybe some of you are already know. So what I tried to do is I just tried to give you some insight about different groups within Engineers Australia. I tried to show the contribution or the significance of my overseas born engineers making to this country and the development of this country. And I just mentioned about this GET program. GET program is still taking in, people are accepting expression of interest from people. So if you are eligible for this category and if you want to apply, then you can actually, what I'll do is with this committee, I'll share the leaflet for this one that has got a link. You can actually apply through express your interest through that link, and then Engineers Australia will be doing the screening and other things, and they will be doing the selection or the shortlisting to match the people with the employers and so on. I tried to little bit of talk about this migration skill assessment. The main thing I highlighted is that you need to be careful about which category you are choosing. You also need to be careful about how you address the competencies. And when you are addressing the competencies, you need to be very careful that there are some indicators. So you need to, when you are writing, you need to sit yourself or put yourself in the shoes of the assessor to see how you can actually demonstrate your competencies. Just claiming that I have done this, just saying or claiming these things without evidence or without solid explanation, it will not really often get accepted. And the last thing I just talked about this competency assessment, 2 types of competencies and registration and so on, and articulation. So I'll just I think there is one upcoming event is tomorrow, I think tomorrow, 21st February. This one is actually in-person event in Melbourne. So if any of you are listening from Melbourne and want to attend there, this one would be actually hosted by someone, 2 external parties. I think one from one university, another from one employer. So they will be also talking about these job pathways for them. So any of you are in Melbourne and want to attend, you can. I have actually put some links. I'll share these links with the organizers. There are some links where you can find some resources. And there is another event coming as the World Engineering Day on March 4th. So if you are interested, you can get yourself involved. Sometimes what I have seen that people, they started to volunteering here and there. Eventually they develop the links or the networks, and eventually that can actually help them land in a proper job. So I'll just finish here. If you have any question, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Subhai. I think it was a very informative 45 minutes. I think there are a few questions coming up. Before I go into that, I'd like to ask this from you. I think you touched a very broad area in terms of helping our engineers to find their path. What are the challenges you see, the way recruiters see migration engineers now, and when we compare with 5 years back? Because especially with the demand we have in especially Sydney and some other major cities in Australia, okay, there's a clear difference in their approach now towards migration engineers. You'd like to answer that?
I think I was in industry very recently. I've been to Engineers Australia just 4 months back. Before that, I was working in industry, and I was in Melbourne 10 years back as well. I think in the last 10 years, I have seen significant change in the attitude in employers. Previously, I have seen people like them, especially employers, when they are actually talking about employment and other things, the first question they will be asking is, do you have local experience? Am I right? So now I think the employers Yeah. So I think the main change that personally I've observed is that nowadays they don't really ask that question. Do you have local experience? Because they know these are migrant engineers. So I have seen some employers, they go a little bit deep into the CV to see what type of exact work you have done. And I have seen few people, not one, two. I have seen few people in the alliance I was working for. They had few people, they had experience in Middle East, they had experience in Malaysia, but the recruiters or the employers considered those experience to give them a reasonably good position in the team. So I think now if we can show them, instead of claiming, if you claim in your CV that you designed a 20-story building or you designed a Eiffel Tower, that's fine. But the thing is, you need to show them what exactly you did. Am I right? If you are in a team of 20 engineers and you are just carrying or printing the papers for them, that can be also in the team, or maybe you are actually responsible for designing specific aspects of that thing. So if you can show that exactly what you did in your CV, I have seen some employers, they are actually even looking beyond this local experience to recruit people, because there is a real shortage in qualified engineers, especially Lutheran.
Thank you, Subhai. I think there are a few questions in the chat as well. First one is, if someone has, say, for example, extensive experience as 13, 15 years of experience in academia, and maybe less experience in industry and doing a PhD, what are the pathways him or her to get chartered from EA?
So for the case of, as I mentioned, that for chartered, it is dependent on stage 2 competencies. Now, when you actually get the stage 1 competency, that means when you become member. And after becoming member, then you need to show that you have developed this stage 2 competencies. And when you look at the stage 2 competencies, some of the competencies are actually very much aligned to your independent practice. So if you are purely in academia and then you have actually shown you develop your knowledge and everything based on your research and other things, that helps, that can actually fill up many of the competencies, but there could be some competencies that not fully addressed. So in that case, most probably if I were you, I'll be trying to see what are the competencies I'm lacking. Then I will try to do something to make sure that those other competencies are actually met. If you are in academia, for academia people, they have a different route for charter. So that for that route, you are actually not required to do demonstrate some of the competencies. But for that route, I went through that route, and for that route, I think you need to actually first apply to get approval to allow you to apply to that route.
Thank you, Siva. The other one is someone like has a temporary resident visa from Australia and degree is not according to the Washington Accord. And if I do competency assessment for stage 1 for getting the membership of Australia, can I only carry out the skill assessment for migration purposes? What do you think?
For for in
Everyone's in your mindset, right? Brothers don't like so much. It's through the experience. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if stage 1 skill assessment and MSA, that means migration skill assessment, they look for the same competences. So they are actually the similar assessment. For the case of migration skill assessment, your experience get counted and so on, that is also get assessed. But for the stage 1 assessment, you only assessed against your stage 1 competencies. So if you want to, I don't exactly clear about your background, but what I can say that if you want to get a immigration then most probably my understanding is that you need to do a MSA anyway to give it to the immigration department. So when you do this MSA, and if you get say for example, your outcome comes as a professional engineer, even though your degree is not Washington Accord. Sometimes, say for example, people coming from some other universities coming from Bangladesh, they have 4 years degree, but that is not Washington Accord because Bangladesh is not a signatory of IESL. So in that case, that degree get assessed, and if it is your degree gets similarly assessed as Washington Accord equivalent, then from a MSA you can get a professional engineer classification. And if you get a professional engineer classification, you can be a member. So in that case, you don't really need to do a stage 1. But if you from a MSA assessment, if you get a engineering technologies classification, and if you feel after working here and other things, or if you have done some further learnings and other things, after doing a MSA, maybe after some time, you can also try a stage 1. But that one, you need to get, or you need to seek a specific information from the assessment team, what they're looking for, before you apply for this stage 1. So in nutshell, I think depending on what you want to do, if you want to apply for immigration, then I think MSA would be the first thing you may have to do. But parallelly or separately, if you do a stage 1, you can do, they are the similar things, but you will be paying twice. So I don't know what you want to do, but they are actually looks for the similar things, except MSA looks for the experience component as well.
Thanks, Siva. Is it on?
Yeah.
Switch on, no? Okay.
No more question.
Yeah. There are quite a bit. Okay, now the next one is, I think, that one of the easiest one. Okay, now someone has having like experience, industry experience, most probably. The question is not that clear. Experience in IESL recognized company. Asked because I know the answer, but I think recognized company. And is there any additional benefit from having like IESL recognized company experience and migrated to Australia and getting EA recognition?
I think what I have seen is that when you are in Australia, most probably they will be talking about only the engineering, whether you have a membership for Engineering Australia and so on. And once you actually get your membership and under EA, I'm not actually promoting this one, but what happens is then you can get an outcome letter. And this outcome letter, and if you can show the 5 competency elements for NER, then you can automatically get yourself registered in Victoria and New South Wales and other places. So getting yourself as registered with the registration authority becomes easier if you transfer it to Engineers Australia framework.
Okay, thanks. The next one is, could you explain the paths and opportunities to start the career as a fresh graduate in New South Wales?
That's a difficult question.
I already have EA membership as well. That's what she is.
To be honest, this is my personal experience, and I would say experience of my friends as well. It depends on for migrants, the journey varies, and journey varies significantly. Some people, you will see some of your friends or colleagues, they come, they get a job very quickly. For some others, it's not sometimes always about your qualifications or skills. It could be something more than that. So for anybody, I can just share one aspect about one thing. Like one person I knew, he became frustrated after applying for maybe 20 or 25 jobs. So he was talking to another of our friend. That friend, he's now a professor in Tuskegee University, US. So when he moved to US, he said that he applied more than 100 universities. And he said that out of these 100 universities, only I got interview from 2 universities and got offer from 1 university. He said that I applied 100 plus, but if I didn't apply that particular one, then my 99 would be failure. So you never know where your destination or where you are actually destined to be in. So if I were you, I'll keep on trying, try to find some networks. Sometimes networks or internal information, it helps because you can get inside information about what type of job they want to get done. So if you can prepare your CV or application based aligning that way, it may actually increase your probability of getting a job.
Sorry, Subhai, there are many questions, so I like to get as much as possible answers from you. Okay, now, if someone is applying for NER,
yeah,
while staying offshore, is it a possibility?
Registration is not under me, but I think for registration you need to be in Australia.
In Australia, no, yeah, that's what I'm. So I have an international professional engineer qualification from IESL, but my basic degree haven't recognized under Washington Accord.
Yeah.
How can I apply for chartered engineer membership in Australia? Is it necessary to do the CDR process?
If you have a chartered from IESL, in that case, and if your base degree, as I mentioned, base degree is not Washington Accord accredited, in that case, your chartered credential will not be mutually recognized by EA. So for your case, what you'll have to do is you will have to do the stage 1. That means you need to demonstrate your stage 1 competencies, or you need to become a member of EA. And after becoming a member of EA, you can actually apply for this stage 2. I have seen people after doing stage 1, they don't take long before they can apply stage 2, because stage 2, they have already worked in the industry and other things. So they already have the experience to tick the many of the boxes. So but the first thing is, if your qualification is not Washington Accord accredited, then your chartered ship, whether you come from UK, Sri Lanka, wherever it is, Australia will not accept that.
Yeah, I think most of the following question, there are quite a bit in that line. So I think you gave quite a clear answer on that. So someone is asking, I don't have Australian visa. I have CP inch of EA. So will it be easy to get a job offer in Australia?
This is
Tough question.
tough question because to be honest, I can say different things. Am I right? But the reality is like it would be coming from the employers. Am I right? Often, if they do some, I have seen people, they are bringing people from the one personal advice I can give to people is that this is from my own experience, and this is not something to do with EA, is that I have seen many of the organizations or the companies, or they are multinational companies, like say, for example, WSP for civil engineering, WSP or Arup or other companies. I have seen people working in the overseas, say, for example, Indian office and other things. And if they do well and they have this type of CP or this type of qualifications, often they can negotiate to get transferred to the, I have seen people, they are bringing people because we need people, especially in Victoria. So I have seen people, they are bringing people from Middle East, India and other places, and they are even paying, the company is paying that person's like expenditures and other things to set up in Australia. So sometimes it's I know it's not open for everyone, but if you have this type of opportunities, that can increase or enhance your possibility of getting transferred, rather than just applying with the CP inch. Sometimes, often employers, if you are employed, you will be looking for someone maybe start from tomorrow or next week. So if you need somebody to get the visa and all these things, some employers, maybe they cannot afford to wait for that long. So they will try to find a local candidates.
Okay, thanks. Then let's try the last one. I think we will finish from. So what will be the benefit of getting international professional engineer membership for IESL? I think there's a MRA sign between I think IESL and EA. So is there any benefit of getting professional engineer membership from IESL?
Is it the international one? Or
Yeah, international one.
International one. This is the inside information we are working on because there are little bit of variation in how you can get this CP inch. Say, for example, in UK, you can actually become a CP inch without having any engineering qualification. This sounds strange, but I was in UK. I know this is true, and I deal with this type of scenario sometimes. So in Australia, we are still holding our standard little bit acceptable level to many of the other countries. So we don't really recognize that. So if you are coming through a organization or things, so we are trying to come up with an international agreement with many other countries in one platform, where if you are a member of that international organization, chartership and other things, that would be automatically accepted by EA. But provided that in that case, your base qualification and other things will still be the required to that appropriate accreditation level. Otherwise, it will not be, you cannot be into that register. So this is not yet in place, but it would be coming in near future. But personally, if you have a IESL member chartered ship, putting in I have seen in international register, they put it. I haven't put it for myself. Am I right? But because I don't really see much of a benefit personally, because I'll not be going to do consultancy in Malaysia or another country. But if you are in that position, you are doing consultancy overseas and other things, in that case, it is best, like it is appropriate for you. So it depends on which situation you are coming from.
I think let's finish from there. Like otherwise, we will continue till 8 p.m. Okay, now thanks a lot, Subair. I think it was very informative session. I will now hand over the session to our chair. You. to give the vote of thanks. Yeah. Okay. Okay, there's a question from the audience again. Okay. Yeah.
Also, the main interesting was for migration hardware. For migration skill, this is this is not the, I would say, solid answer because I that part is not under me. I'm still learning few things, but what I understand is for migration skill assessment, whether you are working for record or anything, you have to investigation. Well, I say it's the I think a lot of engineers. So what I'm going to teach here, yes, it's say yes, it's a years experience and can get it. So what do we can please apply for a migration?
So I think this one, especially people who are having international PE and have like 3-year post experience, that's what they recognize direct transfer to EA membership. So there are examples in recent time after the MRA signed, they got direct conversion from Sri Lankan charter or charter membership plus international PE to Australian equivalent membership through this path of MRA. The direction is Sri Lankan are recognized in EA with that path clearly, but there's no other way around. Yeah. Yeah, with
This question is true, whether they need a MSA separately. They can. This one I can check with the.
yeah, I think you can answer it.
This one, not very sure. This one I'm not very sure about this one. The question is that whether the people who have already IESL membership in the graduate level, whether they can skip the MRA assessment part. So whether they can, I don't think this is possible. Not possible.
We are studying that part at this moment. From both ends to make sure that pass the message to the membership here as well as in Sri Lanka. So it will at least definitely within this year, like the next few months, we will come up with clear idea from the guidelines from EA plus IESL as well, because we need both sides to actively participate for this. So yeah, it will take a bit of time, but we will get into that. I think it's not 100% clear, but the answer your question most likely no. They need to, especially. Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
I don't think they
Yeah, that's where I think as far as I know, because I investigated this last few weeks. Okay, now you need to have charter from Sri Lankan Institute. You need to have international PE for 3 minimum years to get that direct recognition from EA. That's what I know at this moment. But don't take this as the final verdict, but I will go through it and maybe Damika and myself will work on this in next few months. And definitely it's one of the key items from the committee this year to find out the clear guideline from EA. Maybe it's not Dr. Subai's role at this moment with EA. So, but we will go to EA plus, and we will need support from IESL as well on this. Yeah. Because I discussed this one with Professor Anjit as well when I was in Sri Lanka. So mainly I think there's a agreement signed, but there's no clear. Yeah, that's what I read this. Exactly, but I recently learned it's the minimum benchmark put by EA. But don't take this as a word, but we need to go into them and get that in right. Yeah.
So it would be my suggestion to both of you.
Yeah.
So
people who are intending to get benefit in here, it's mostly the younger ones who is just passed out with having up to 5 or 6 years of experience who are undergraduates. That's where the migration works well as well. So they are the people need to be benefited rather
The senior. Yeah. 100% agree, but I think we just need to go back to Ian and get that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, but I think we don't have sound answer for that.
Thank you, Sodhi, for that valuable question. I think both myself and Damit is working with both the EA and IESL because MRA is signed very recently and there are so many gray areas. It's not clear cut. So we have to go through each and every point and make sure before giving a clear comment on that. So for sure, within next few months' time, we are talking to both EA and IESL and we'll get you what actually comes out of it and what actual benefits for the young engineers or the experienced professional certified engineers and all for everyone. So I think we need a little bit of time to clarify those. Okay, now I think this is a really informative event. I think we had, I think, more than 50% of participants from Sri Lanka. And so that's huge number. I think the number was around 220, but we are quite sure because those numbers are coming with groups. So because the initial registration was 500 plus, and we were a bit worried because our Zoom limitations were 500. I would like to thank Dr. Subai's side for that very important information and the lecture, and of course coming all the way from Melbourne, spending day or two here, and he has to go back tomorrow and he has to do another lecture day after tomorrow. So with all this busy schedule, accepting our invitation and coming here, we really appreciate Doctor. And yeah, of course, the committee, of course, taking all this technical stuff and handling 200 plus participants. It's a bit of a challenge, always we are coming up with a bug and something like that. And I'm sorry that we had this echoing issue that's always there when you are handling multiple participants. And yeah, thank you very much, team, for having everything. Of course, I have to thank you, Engineers Australia, for facilitating all our events. Because having this kind of a auditorium and all these audiovisual facilities is really valuable for us to go with it. Then I'd like to thank all the participants, and I hope that you learned a lot of valuable information for that. And hopefully people who join from Sri Lanka will be here in Australia very soon. And people who join from Australia will be finding their prospective careers and their career growth very soon. And finally, I would like to thank you, our sponsors. Again, thank you very much, Dakshit and team, for your generosity and sponsoring that. I think you will feel that value of this because I think this is, for some people, this is kind of a life support. Getting their career back on track, someone who worked in Sri Lanka for several years coming here and, just kind of a lost in the jungle, couldn't find any path, and giving them this kind of a guidance and information. It's like, if you're talking about our own language, it's a loco pinak, right? So thank you very much, Dakshit and team, for the sponsorship. And definitely you'll be having benefits of that very soon. Not from tomorrow, of course, from 1 month onwards, definitely you'll be having the benefits of that. Thank you very much, everyone.